Hey everyone. In a previous video, I explained the difference between healthy desire and lust. And I want to reiterate that sexual desire is natural and healthy. But what we do with that desire really matters. Today, I want to show you two paths. One path leads to the potential for growth and for intimacy and love, and the other path bypasses all universally acknowledged methods of courtship, and it may promise you pleasure, but what it really does, it delivers shame and isolation. In short, I'm going to be talking about the shortcut that leads to shame. Let's figure it out. So it starts with desire, and in desire, you notice someone and you get attracted to this person. It could be because of their looks, it could be their personality, it can be their talents, whatever attracts you to that person. Now, healthy desire typically leads one into an old-fashioned word called courtship. I'm not really sure what a better word for this is, but basically courtship is a journey where you get to know this person and you try to figure out whether we are a good match. So I'm going to represent the courtship with this tape measure that stretches out. So this is the beginning of the courtship journey. Now, at first, there's risk because maybe this guy doesn't even know that you exist. And you might be the one who tries to get their attention, or you might be the one that has to approach them and say hello, you introduce yourself. Maybe your heart is racing because who knows, maybe this guy may not be interested in you. As they get a sense that you're trying to get to know them in a more romantic kind of way, they might say no. And they have every right to say no. They have agency, they have free will. And that's very vulnerable. Courtship at every stage of the journey is very vulnerable. So that's something to take into consideration. Now, if let's say you express interest and that person expresses interest back, then you start to get to know each other and the courtship process kind of develops this way. And you kind of you start to observe, how does this person treat other people? How do they treat their family members? How do they treat people of other races? How do they treat people in other socioeconomic classes? And they are evaluating you as well. How does this person handle stress? Are they narcissistic? What makes them laugh? What do they care about? And you guys are evaluating along the way. And then over time, you're asking yourself, and that person is asking themselves, are we right for each other? Do we trust one another? Can I be myself with the other person? And there's maybe risk here too. Maybe many months have passed. Maybe you realize at that point, no, this is not who I want to spend the rest of my life with. And you know what? It may feel like a loss, but this loss is also part of growth. But let's say you do realize that you guys are really getting close to each other. There's different value systems. Some people will start getting sexual as they build trust with one another. There's this guy here, and as you kind of go along in the courtship process, maybe you express your affection for one another through more touch, more sexual expression. But you do so maybe because you feel very safe with one another. It's not like, sort of a one-night stand. I don't even know who this person is, but, you're kind of practicing intimacy emotionally, socially, relationally, and maybe you're practicing sexual intimacy. Now, I know that there are other camps of thought as well, which is maybe some people save that until after marriage, and that's okay too. Regardless of what position you have on this, courtship involves a getting to know one another and deepening in the intimacy process. And like I said, throughout this entire process going this way, there's risk involved. You're practicing being real with another person. You're developing the capacity for genuine love. This is not just mere attraction to one another. This isn't just pleasure of one another. This is actual intimate connection with another human being. Now let's look at the shortcut that I was mentioning at the beginning of the video. Same starting point, desire. You feel attracted, maybe you feel aroused, but instead of letting that desire lead you into courtship, you reach for the shortcut. No process of getting to know one another. You either get into sexual intimacy right away, or let's say you just met this person, but you don't really have the courage to speak to them. You start to fantasize about what this person is like naked and what it's like to be with them sexually without any sort of work in the courtship process. Or maybe you didn't even meet this person. Maybe you just saw them online. Maybe you just saw them across a crowded room. And so there's no approaching of anyone. There's no risk of rejection because it's all in your head. There's no vulnerable conversations. There's no getting to know a real person. There's no practicing of trust. There's no conflict resolution. You skip all of it and you go straight to sexual stimulation. But what you're actually getting is just fantasy. And honestly, this can be repeated endlessly. Why? Because there's no one to say no to you. No one is challenging you. No one sees the real you. And there's no growth because there's no relationship. And what's sad is that afterwards, a lot of people just feel shame. Because deep down, you know that this isn't actually what you want. You want connection. You want to be known. You want to be loved for who you are. But instead of practicing the skills that lead to that, we take the shortcut that leads nowhere. And so in the shortcut, there's no skills being built. And we're actually training ourselves that sexual pleasure should be disconnected from intimacy. That desire should be satisfied immediately without any sort of vulnerability. And you can have the physical experience without the emotional risk. And so we start to ask ourselves, how do I talk to someone that I'm attracted to? How do I handle rejection? How do I share myself authentically? These skills feel impossible because we've never practiced them. So if you identify with the person who's been taking the shortcut, I hope you don't despair. You're not a broken person. I just think maybe you've been practicing the wrong thing. And here's the good news. Everyone can start practicing the good thing. Yeah, it'll feel awkward. It will probably feel very risky. You might get rejected. You might get rejected often, more often than you want. But that's more common than you think. That's reality. That's where growth happens. That's where you have the chance to develop intimacy skills. It's where true love becomes possible. If you struggle with this, like many do, I suggest that you talk to someone. Maybe a therapist who understands sexual addiction and intimacy disorders. Maybe you can get involved with a support group that centers specifically around this topic. You don't have to keep taking this shortcut that leads to shame. Thanks for watching, and I hope that you will join me next time as we figure more stuff out.